Welcome back, everybody, to the Weekly Source. Super excited to have you all here, and very excited for our guest who is generous enough to give us time on a webinar a couple weeks ago and then join us today on the Weekly Source. We've got Scott Millson, principal over at Milton James. Scott, welcome to the Weekly Source.
Yeah, thanks, Neil. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Of course. And so for the folks who aren't aware or don't know you, mind just giving a quick intro on yourself?
Sure. Yeah. So Scott Millson. At Milton James, we kind of work with organizations to try to help them figure out what the right solutions are around HR technology. We distribute our services primarily through employee benefit agencies, and so we work a lot with the agencies to kind of help them and then help their clients as well. And so, been in the space for over 30 years now. Had a full head of hair when I started. Don't still have that obviously anymore. But been around in and around the space for quite some time, and kind of we work everything from payroll HR systems to ben admin systems to time and attendance, applicant tracking, you kind of name it. And so we work to try to help folks figure out what the right solutions are there.
That's super helpful, and I think even the topic today probably contributed to some of the hair loss. Right? It's about managing expectations and really the consideration going into selecting benefits providers. So I know this was a webinar you did with Nancy, and so I wanted to kind of highlight some of the major takeaways and the questions that folks had coming out of that. And so kind of first question for you really was around what questions should either HR, brokers, consultants out there asking, what should they be asking potential vendors when they're evaluating benefits technology solutions?
Yeah, I think the first one is really first of all, just to make sure that whatever that you're going to be looking at and talking about, that it addresses your current problems. And so, too often I think people enter into it. Yeah, I'll join a webinar, I'll join a demo, and I'll watch it. And you can kind of get a little bit drawn into some of the sizzle around those things. And so somebody might have some really, slick decision support tools, which is great and may serve a great purpose. But if it's not addressing the current problems that somebody is facing today, then it probably isn't necessarily going to be a worthwhile exercise. And so what we really encourage people to do is to work with whatever partner you're working with or multiple partners, is share with them where you are today. What are the challenges that you're facing today? Just don't get into a demo and just kind of start watching it, because I can pretty much guarantee you're going to see something that you like, which is great. But at the end of the day, is it addressing the problem that you're currently facing today? If you've got a standalone, ben admin system today and it doesn't integrate well into your payroll HCM, ask questions around that. You need to go through that exercise to really make sure that the vendor that you're going to be working with is going to be able to address those. I think the other thing that we look at, whether you're sitting in the HR seat or whether you're sitting in the broker seat, there's two things that we always suggest to people, is that you want to mitigate risk and amplify value. And it's really, the questions are still the same whether you're sitting in HR, whether you're sitting in the broker seat. As a broker, your job is to make sure that you're finding the right solutions for your customer, and you want to make sure that you are amplifying that value. If you find value in what you're doing and how you service your customer today, and they come to you with a ben admin need, again, you want to make sure that you're trying to address the specific issues that employer group is finding, and you want to amplify that value. But also as a broker, you really, the last thing you want to do is kind of hang your neck out there and say, hey, look, I think you should go with ABC company, and have that not go well. There's different things that we can talk about that we talked about on the earlier webinar that really kind of drive down on some of those pieces to make sure that you're mitigating that risk. And then, from an HR standpoint, similar thing. If you are an HR professional and you know that you need to have some type of a ben admin system, you want to make sure that, again, you're amplifying that value, you're mitigating risk. You don't want to kind of stick your neck out there and put somebody in place that you're not confident with, because that's a career limiting move when you kind of end up in that spot, and if something doesn't go well.
I like the element of not getting distracted by the kind of bells and whistles and going into, your either purchasing process or decision-making process, being hyper aware or self-aware of where your issues are. If it's a disparate workforce, or to your point, EDI challenges are big. So it sounds like being transparent with yourself and then also your broker consultant on where the pain is allows for a better process of actual solutioning, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Every
I like
time.
that. So when, you're getting through purchasing process, or, we've had cases in the past where you're getting through implementation and the biggest issue is this isn't what we thought it was, or you're halfway through implementation and now we're trying to pull the cord. I mean, how, from your experience and kind of what you're working with your clients today, how can you get ahead of that, right? What are the
Yeah.
critical considerations that you can work with to uncover those red flags earlier in the process to mitigate any buyer's remorse or issues downstream?
Yeah, that sales process is critical to make sure that it's a show me, right? So when somebody can tell you, yeah, we do that all the time. We're the best at this. We're the best at that. Show it to me. Prove it to me. It really is an opportunity for you to kind of, you haven't signed anything yet. They're in kind of the courtship. You're in the courtship. You're trying to figure out if it's a good match, but you really kind of want to say, prove it to me, show it to me. And the way you get to that is what we led with when I mentioned that you want to make sure it's specific to you. So if I've got a problem, and I come to you and I say, hey, look, I've got my current vendor today told me EDI feeds would be up and running, and here we are a year later and we're not. You really kind of want to get to it again. Don't tell me, but you need to show me. And so, if you've got, again, problems with carrier feeds going off to UHC, you say, I'd like to talk to somebody that has had a good carrier interface with UHC, United Healthcare. If you've got an issue around, somebody that says I need to connect into Paylocity, or I need to create a connection to Ultimate Software, I'd like to talk to somebody that has recently gone through an implementation and they've implemented Ultimate Software and had the connection points that are made there. So again, asking for a general reference, kind of helpful, but you should expect to hear really good things because they're not going to give you a bad reference. But ask specifics, try to get it. And I think the other area that I would spend time on is around the implementation process. You nailed it when you said, the implementation is going to drive everything. It's going to be the success of your success is going to be driven off of how successful that implementation process goes. And then the last thing I think from just to kind of to avoid surprises, make sure you really go through that provider profile. Make sure you understand the partner, the person with whom you might be dancing. Understand, have you guys gone through any type of an audit, an independent audit? What's your data security? Because let's be honest, a Ben admin system houses a great deal of PHI data. Anything that an identity theft would want resides in a Ben admin system. You want to make sure that somebody has really gone through their due diligence and that you've gone through your due diligence and make sure that they are appropriately secure in what they do. And the best way to do that is independent audits.
Love that. Super helpful. I like the element of kind of meeting as a platform provider, meeting the client where they are, right? And if we can work to, say we've got an expedited timeline or an expedited launch that gets everybody nervous, and instead of just saying, yes, we can do it, it's here's the work we need from both sides or even from the broker to help to get us there. And what's that collaborative approach, and kind of everybody kind of putting their hands in and get into that open enrollment timeline and ready in time. So that's super helpful. Well, Scott, we're at time, but I always like to wrap up with a call to action. When you and I were speaking before, a lot of the folks watching this, they're in HR, they're a broker. So before we go, kind of what's your call to action? What's your message to both audiences?
Yeah, I think Ben admin systems are a tremendous value within the marketplace. They streamline things for all parties of the ecosystem, right? Carriers love to have them because you get file feeds in place, and now they can really get better billing out, and they're going to have better member processes. And so carriers love to have the systems, employees love to have it. Candidly, they expect to have it. I've got a 25-year-old son, and I remember a number of years ago, he started an internship with a very large company, and they handed him a huge stack of papers and said, here, fill out all this paperwork. And it blew his mind. And so, they're expecting to have an online experience here. They don't want to do a paper-based process anymore. And so, you need to be migrating in those directions if you don't already have it today. And if you do have a system and it's causing you problems, again, jot those down, understand what those are, and then present it. If you go through the process, present what those challenges are to make sure that you can really understand how this is specifically going to be helping our organization, not just a general.
Love it. Yeah, I was going to say, I guess that's probably FaceTime the dad. You probably walk through the stack of papers with him, right?
Right. Yeah. Well, he looked at me like it was my fault. He said, Dad, he goes, how do you allow this to happen? I'm like, well, they're not a customer of ours, so I can't really commit to, comment there. But yeah, he thought it was my fault that I allowed that to happen.
Well, Scott Millson, appreciate the time. Yes, again, the webinar was a hit, and glad we got to pull you aside for social media video here. Thanks everybody at home for tuning in. Yeah, Scott, appreciate it. And we'll catch everybody next week on the Weekly Source.
All right. Thanks, Neil. Take care.